2 a.m. my phone buzzed. It was a call from my friend Jessica. She was in Miami, and she'd just seen my husband walk into a high-end restaurant with another woman. I turned my head to look into the study where the soft glow of a monitor silhouetted my husband Michael deep in a video conference. Then I quietly booked the earliest flight to Miami. The 2 a.m. call shattered the silence. Jess said she'd seen Michael in Miami, his arm wrapped around another woman's waist as they entered an exclusive restaurant called the Azure Whisper. But when I turned to look at my husband's study, he was clearly attending a multinational video conference call. On his screen, I could see the faces of several executives. He was definitely home, so how could he simultaneously be hundreds of miles away in Florida? I decided I had to fly there and see for myself who this impossible doppelganger was. But the truth would be far stranger than I could have ever imagined. At 2:10 a.m., the ringtone sliced through the bedroom's quiet like a blade. I rubbed my sleepy eyes and fumbled for the phone on the nightstand. The screen's light stung. The caller was Jess. "Hello, Jess. What's up at this?" Before I could finish, a choked sob erupted from the other end of the line. "Chloe, I don't know if I should be telling you this, but you have to know." Sleep evaporated from my mind in an instant. I shot up in bed, my voice trembling. "Where are you? What's wrong? I'm in Miami." "I just left this private club." Jessica's voice broke as if she were trying to suppress a wave of emotion. I saw Michael. He had his arm around this woman in a long, wine-red dress. They were so close, and they walked into this French-American restaurant together. The woman, she had this incredible figure. Her hair was in a perfect updo. She was definitely not just anyone. I instinctively turned my head. A warm light seeped from under the study door. 5 minutes ago, I had brought my husband Michael Miller a cup of hot tea. He was in a video conference with their European branch. On the screen, I'd seen familiar faces. David Scott, the director of operations, Laura Roberts, the CFO, and even Ben Carter from the tech team. I took a deep breath, my voice surprisingly calm. "Send me the exact location. I'm booking a flight now." "Chloe, aren't you angry? How can you be so calm?" Jessica seemed stunned by my reaction. I hung up without answering. Michael was clearly in his study in a meeting, yet he had appeared in Miami at the same time. How was this possible? I tiptoed to the study door and peeked through the crack. Michael was still sitting at his desk, wearing a gray knit cardigan over his navy silk pajamas. He was speaking to the screen, his expression serious, occasionally jotting notes with a pen. The time was clearly displayed in the bottom right corner of the screen, 2:15 a.m. Laura Roberts was reporting on the last quarter's financial results, with David Scott interjecting occasionally, while Ben Carter was quietly taking notes. This was clearly a real meeting. The time difference with the London office, where they were coordinating a project, necessitated these late-night calls. I returned to the bedroom, and with slightly trembling hands, opened my phone. Jess had already sent the location info, a French restaurant called the Azure Whisper, located on a scenic drive in South Beach. She had also sent 3 photos. They were a bit blurry and the lighting was dim, but I recognized the figure from behind in an instant. That charcoal gray cashmere overcoat. I had specially ordered it from Italy for him last month. The cuffs had a small custom-embroidered pattern I had designed myself. The man in the photo was wearing that exact coat, his arm around a woman's waist. I zoomed in on the woman. A wine-red evening gown, hair swept up high. Her profile was elegant, her jawline sharp, but the angle made it impossible to see her features clearly. "Jess, are you sure I texted her?" "Chloe, we've been friends for how many years? You think I wouldn't recognize Michael?" Her reply came back instantly. "And that coat, I remember it. The designer one from Italy you were showing off last month." I was so jealous. I sat on the edge of the bed, my mind racing. If Michael was in Miami right now, who was the man in the study? And if the man in the study was Michael, then who was the man in Miami? I started recalling his recent strange behavior. The week before last, he suddenly announced he was signing up for swimming lessons even though he'd always hated the water. Last week, he said the company was conducting executive health checkups, but as far as I knew, the company's annual checkups were always in April. And he'd been coming home late recently, claiming a new project was in its final stages and needed his personal attention. I decided to verify one thing first. I opened the smart home security app on my phone. We had cameras installed at the front door in the dining room and at the entrance to the study for security. I pulled up today's recordings and fast-forwarded from 6 p.m. The footage showed Michael arriving home at 6:40 p.m., the two of us having dinner at 7:30 p.m., and him entering the study at 8:15 p.m., after which he never came out. The CCTV timeline was clear with nothing suspicious at all. But the time Jess saw him in Miami was around 10 p.m. The flight from San Francisco to Miami alone is at least 5 hours. Unless he could teleport, it was physically impossible. I reviewed the footage again meticulously. Suddenly, a detail caught my eye. When Michael came home tonight, he was wearing the Patek Philippe watch I'd given him on his left wrist. I'd bought it for our 5th wedding anniversary. It was a huge splurge. He always wore it no matter where he went, and never took it off. I zoomed in on the photo Jess sent, scrutinizing the man's wrist. The picture was incredibly blurry, but I could faintly make out a watch on his left wrist. The silver band design looked identical to Michael's. "This can't be happening," I whispered in disbelief. My phone vibrated again. A new message from Jess. "Chloe, they just came out of the restaurant. They got into a black Porsche and headed west. Should I follow them?" I hesitated for a few seconds before replying. "No, it's okay. You should just go back to your hotel and rest. I'll handle this. Trust me, I think I know what to do." After ending the chat, I immediately searched for flights online. The earliest flight to Miami was at 7:20 a.m. It wasn't too late to book. Without a moment's hesitation, I paid for the ticket. After all this, I went back to the study door. The meeting was still in progress. "Laura, the quarterly financial report is fine overall, but we need to shorten the collection period on the UK receivables." Michael's voice came through clearly. It was unmistakably his voice. I was so familiar with it. We'd dated for 3 years and been married for 5. I'd heard this voice countless times. He had a habit of twirling his pen with his right hand when he spoke, furrowing his brow slightly, when thinking and leaning forward slightly to emphasize an important point. But then who on earth was the man in Miami? I returned to the bedroom and opened Michael's closet. The charcoal gray cashmere coat was hanging quietly on the far left, still in its garment bag. I took it out and checked the sleeve. The small embroidered pattern was intact with no signs of wear. Even the tag was still attached. Wait. A thought struck me. When I bought this coat, I had actually bought 2. One for him and one I'd intended to give to his cousin, Ryan Miller. Ryan was 2 years younger than Michael, and they had grown up together, so they looked very much alike. Especially from behind, they were nearly identical. Ryan also had a similar build to Michael, so if they wore the same clothes, you couldn't tell them apart. When the coats arrived last month, I'd received both, given one to Michael, and put the other in the closet in the spare room, planning to give it to Ryan the next time he was in San Francisco. If this coat was still in the closet, then the coat Ryan had. I immediately grabbed my phone and checked Ryan's Instagram profile. We didn't talk often, but we exchanged greetings on holidays. I opened his feed. His most recent post was from 4 p.m. this afternoon. It was a picture of a pristine beach, and the caption read, "Finally, a quiet half day to myself. This ocean breeze is so healing." The location tag was a beach in Miami. I let out a sigh of relief. It was Ryan. Jess must have mistaken him. She'd met Ryan a few times, but the 2 cousins looked so similar that she wouldn't have been able to tell them apart from behind. I was about to text Jess to clear things up when a news notification popped up on my phone. Young entrepreneur Ryan Miller shares startup know-how at Singapore Investment Summit. I clicked on the article. Inside were several high-resolution photos. In the pictures, Ryan was wearing a navy suit, standing at a podium, giving a passionate speech. The banner in the background clearly showed the date, December 28th. Today. Ryan was in Singapore. How could he possibly be in Miami at the same time? Then who was the man in Miami? A wave of dizziness washed over me, and I had to grab the bedpost to steady myself. If it wasn't Ryan, who could it be? Could it really be Michael? But he was clearly in the study in a meeting. Suddenly, a thought flashed through my mind. What if it was a pre-recorded video? But I dismissed it as soon as it came. When I brought him the tea earlier, he had turned his head, smiled at me, and said, "Thanks, honey. You go get some sleep." That was a real-time interaction, not a recording. Besides, the other people in the video conference were also interacting in real time, discussing the latest project updates. It wasn't something that could have been pre-recorded. I threw on a robe and swung open the study door. Michael looked up at me a little surprised. "What's wrong? You're still up." The executives in the video all looked over. Laura Roberts smiled and greeted me. "Mrs. Miller burning the midnight oil with him. You two are a model couple." I stared intently at Michael's face and asked, enunciating each word carefully. "Were you in San Francisco all day today?" "Of course." "I was in San Francisco." Michael frowned. "What's wrong? Did something happen? Where did you go today?" I had meetings at the office this morning, lunch with David Scott at the company cafeteria, met an investor in the afternoon, and came home a little after 5. He looked at me puzzled. Chloe, what is going on? I didn't answer, just said, let me see your phone. My phone, Michael paused for a moment but then handed it over. You know the passcode. I unlocked his phone and checked everything: call logs, text messages, and even his phone's location history. All the data showed that he had definitely been in San Francisco today. There were no trips to the airport, no airline tickets purchased. Excuse me, everyone, I need to interrupt the meeting for just a moment, I said, turning to the camera. Could you all confirm one thing for me? Has Michael Miller himself been present for this entire meeting tonight from beginning to end? Laura, David, and Ben all looked bewildered. Finally, Laura spoke up. Yes, of course it's been him. We've been on this call with him since 8 p.m. She added, Mrs. Miller, is everything all right? I took a deep breath. No, nothing. I'm sorry for the interruption. Please continue. I closed the study door and leaned against the hallway wall, feeling all the strength drain from my body. I went back to the bedroom and opened the photos Jess had sent again. I examined them one by one. The man's back, that coat, that build, and even the way he walked it was undeniably Michael. But the security cameras showed he was home. His colleagues confirmed he was in a meeting, and his phone's location history proved he was in San Francisco. So who was the man in Miami? Suddenly a person came to mind. Ethan Harris. Ethan was Michael's college roommate and best friend. More importantly, Ethan's appearance and build were somewhat similar to Michael's. Back in college, people often confused the two. Later, Ethan moved to Miami to start a business, and we hadn't seen him in a few years. I found Ethan's profile on social media. His privacy settings were high, so I couldn't see any recent posts. After a moment's hesitation, I sent him a message. Hey Ethan, how have you been? I waited for over 10 minutes, but there was no reply. It was 3:30 a.m. I couldn't stay awake any longer. I lay down in bed and forced myself to try to sleep. I had to save my energy for the flight to Miami tomorrow. But as soon as I closed my eyes, a jumble of images filled my mind. Michael in his study meeting the back of the man in Miami with his arm around that woman and that charcoal gray coat. In a daze, I heard the study door open. I opened my eyes. I saw Michael entering the bedroom. He moved very carefully, as if afraid of waking me. Is the meeting over? My voice was a little hoarse. Yeah, just finished. He sat down on the edge of the bed and touched my forehead. You've been acting strange tonight. Are you feeling sick? No, I paused, then said I had a nightmare. What kind of dream? A dream about you. I looked him straight in the eye. I dreamed you were in Miami with another woman. Michael laughed. Silly. You know that would never happen. You're the only one for me forever. When he said this, his eyes were clear and firm without a trace of hesitation. This was the Michael I had known for 8 years, dated for 3, and lived with for 5. I knew him so well. But what about Jessica's call and those photos? The next morning at 5:30 a.m., my alarm went off as scheduled. I got up quietly. Michael was still fast asleep. I left a note on the nightstand. Jess ran into some trouble in Miami. Going to check on her, will be back by evening. I packed a small bag and quietly left the house. On the way to the airport, I got a text from Jess. Chloe, are you really coming? I was thinking about it all night, and maybe I was wrong. The lighting was so bad. I'm in a cab to the airport now, I replied. Even if you were wrong, it's fine. I could use a little break in Miami anyway. Okay then. I'll pick you up from the airport. The flight took off on time, and a few hours later, I landed at Miami International Airport. As I stepped out of the terminal, the warm, humid sea breeze hit my face, a stark contrast to the dry, cool air of San Francisco. Jess was already waiting at the arrival gate. She looked haggard, her eyes were slightly red, and she had dark circles. Chloe, she came over and gave me a tight hug. I'm so sorry. I think I really was mistaken. I made you come all this way for nothing. It's okay. Let's go sit down somewhere. Tell me everything about last night in detail. We found a cafe near the airport. Jess ordered a latte but didn't take a single sip, just stared blankly at the cup in her hands. I finished a client dinner around 9:30 p.m. last night. She began slowly piecing together her memory. I was going to go straight back to my room to rest, but as I was passing the Azure Whisper, I happened to see a man helping a woman out of a car. You saw him get out of the car for sure, I asked. Definitely. It was a black Porsche Cayenne. He was such a gentleman, opened the car door for her, and then put his arm around her waist as they walked into the restaurant. The woman was wearing a wine-red evening gown, her figure was amazing, and her hair was done so elegantly. I took out my phone and showed her the photos she sent last night. Was this him? Yes, that's him. Jess nodded firmly. I took the picture right then. Look, this coat, it's the one you bought, right? I looked closely at the photo. It was definitely that charcoal gray cashmere coat. The embroidery on the cuff was faintly visible, but the photos only showed his back and side profile, never his face. After that, I wanted to go inside and get a better look, but the Azure Whisper is members only, so I couldn't get in. I waited outside for about 40 minutes, and then they came out and drove off. You tried to follow them, but... Jess lowered her head. I was scared they'd spot me if I got too close. And I wasn't completely sure if I was mistaken or not. I took a sip of my coffee and asked, "Do you remember the license plate number? Even a part of it." It was 1-2 something. Maybe 6,870 or 6,827. I can't remember exactly, Jess said, looking through her phone's notes. And you said they went west. Yeah, I saw the car head in that direction. I opened Google Maps on my phone and checked the routes west from the Azure Whisper. The road was lined with several luxury hotels and beachfront villa communities. If it really was Michael, where would he be staying? Jess, are you here on a business trip this time? Yeah, the company's Southern Regional Conference. It's a 4-day thing. I got here the day before yesterday. You probably were just mistaken. Don't blame yourself, I comforted her. And about the coat. Maybe it's just the same design. A charcoal gray coat is pretty common. It's probably just a coincidence. Even as I said it, I couldn't convince myself. That coat was a limited edition of 50 worldwide. One was in our closet, and the other I had intended for Ryan but hadn't given him yet. If the man in Miami was wearing the same design, there were only 2 possibilities. He had stolen it, or... I didn't want to think about it anymore. Chloe, let's go to the Azure Whisper together. Maybe we can find something out, Jess suggested. We took a taxi to the Azure Whisper. It was a very high-end private club. The exterior was simple and understated, but every detail exuded luxury. The landscaping at the entrance alone was a testament to its value. Good morning. Do you have a reservation? A staff member at the entrance politely stopped us. We'd like to ask a few questions. Around 9:30 last night, a couple had dinner here. The gentleman was wearing a charcoal gray coat, and the lady was in a wine-red evening gown, I said, testing the waters. I'm very sorry, but we cannot disclose any information about our clients, the staff member said with a smile, his refusal firm. I thought for a moment, then took out my phone and showed him a picture of Michael. Did this man come here last night? The staff member glanced at it and shook his head. I'm sorry I wasn't on duty yesterday, so I don't know. And even if I did, it's our policy not to share that information. It seemed this approach wasn't going to work. We left the Azure Whisper and looked around the area. This neighborhood was filled with upscale restaurants and hotels, a frequent haunt for the wealthy and business elite. Should we head west? Jess said. You said their car went in that direction. I nodded. We took a taxi to a villa community on the west side. It was home to some of the most exclusive beachfront villas, and the surroundings were very quiet. But looking for one person in such a large area was like finding a needle in a haystack. Chloe, why don't we just call the police? Jess suggested. If it really is Michael? No, police, I cut her off. I have my own ideas. In truth, I had no idea what to do, but I had a gut feeling that this was not as simple as it seemed. Rashly involving the police might only complicate things. We wandered around the area for half the day but found nothing. As the sun began to set, Jess suggested we go back to the hotel and rest. Stay with me. I booked a suite with 2 bedrooms. I agreed. At the hotel, I sent Michael a text. I've arrived in Miami. Jess's situation is a bit complicated, so I might have to stay the night. Michael replied almost instantly. Okay. Be safe. Do you want me to fly over? No, it's fine. You focus on your work. Then take good care of Jess. Call me anytime if you need anything. Reading this conversation, my heart was a mess. If that man really was Michael, how could he be so casually chatting with me? But if it wasn't him, why was someone else wearing that one-of-a-kind coat? That night, Jess ordered takeout. We sat on the balcony looking out at the city lights. Neither of us spoke. Chloe, what if... Jess started, then trailed off. What if Michael has a twin brother or something? One you don't know about. I gave a bitter smile. He only has one cousin, Ryan. No siblings. And that cousin was at an event in Singapore yesterday. I saw it on the news. That's so weird. Jess frowned. I swear I wasn't mistaken. That back, that build, and that coat. It was exactly like Michael. A question popped into my head. Jess, when you took the pictures, did you get a good look at the woman? No, she kept her head down slightly and her hair was covering half her face. I just saw that she had a great figure, fair skin, and a very elegant air about her. How old did she look, roughly? Based on her figure and outfit, I'd say she wasn't over 30. Very young and well-maintained. The night grew deeper. Jess was already asleep, but I couldn't sleep at all. I stood on the balcony, staring at the dark ocean in the distance. My mind was a tangled mess. Suddenly, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar area code. Hello, is this Chloe Miller? The voice on the other end was a man's. It sounded vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place it. Yes, this is she. Who's calling? This is Ethan Harris. My heart skipped a beat. Ethan, you got my message this morning. I just saw it now, Ethan said. I see from your location, you're in Miami. I happen to be here too. Want to meet up and talk? My heart started pounding faster. You're in Miami too, Ethan. Yeah, I have a project I'm working on here. What a coincidence that you're here too. Yeah, I'm near the beach drive. Where are you? I'm on the west side. Not too far from you. Are you free tomorrow? Let me treat you to a meal. Yes, that sounds great. After hanging up, my heart was still racing. Ethan was in Miami, and on the west side no less. The west side was very close to the Azure Whisper. Could it be? No, that's impossible. Ethan was Michael's best friend. He would never do something like that. Besides, from what I knew, he was married to his high school sweetheart. But that figure from behind. A terrible possibility occurred to me. What if the man wasn't Michael or Ryan, but Ethan? Ethan and Michael definitely had some resemblance. If he wore the same clothes, it would be really hard to tell them apart just from behind. But why would Ethan be wearing Michael's coat? The coat was clearly in my possession. Wait a minute. I remembered something. When I bought the coat online last month, the store said this was a limited edition with only 50 made worldwide. What if Ethan had bought the same design? This was entirely possible. Ethan and Michael were old friends, so they might have similar tastes and like the same coat. If so, then the person Jess saw was Ethan, not Michael. That would explain everything: why the man was in Miami while Michael was in San Francisco, why he was wearing the same design of coat, and why his back looked so similar. As I reached this conclusion, I let out a long breath. The tension that had been gripping me started to ease a little. The next day at noon, I was scheduled to meet Ethan at a seafood grill. Ethan looked the same as I remembered him: bright, handsome, with a friendly smile. He was wearing a white polo shirt and khaki pants, though he seemed a bit tanner and thinner than the last time I saw him. Chloe, it's been a long time, he said, extending his hand. How's Michael doing these days? He's doing well, I said, shaking his hand. How about you? How's your wife? Ethan's smile stiffened for a moment before returning to normal. We divorced 6 months ago. I froze. What? How? It was just differences in personality, I guess. We separated amicably, Ethan said calmly. I didn't tell Michael. Didn't want to worry him. I didn't know what to say, and the atmosphere became awkward. The waiter brought the menus, and we each ordered our food. After the waiter left, Ethan asked, Are you here in Miami on vacation? Sort of. With a friend. I hesitated for a moment, then decided to ask directly. Ethan, can I ask you something? Sure, anything. I took out my phone and showed him the photo. Were you at the Azure Whisper around 9:30 the night before last? Ethan glanced at the photo and his expression changed subtly. How do you have this picture? My heart sank. So it really was you. Yeah, that was me. Ethan admitted it calmly. I was entertaining an important client at the Azure Whisper that night. Why? Who was the woman? A very important partner, Ethan said, looking at me. Chloe, are you misunderstanding something? I took a deep breath. Were you wearing a charcoal gray coat that day? Yes, Ethan nodded. Why? Where did you buy that coat online? An Italian brand, I think. He thought for a moment. I can't remember the name, but it was pretty expensive. It was the same brand I had bought for Michael. Why did you buy that coat? I pressed. I liked the design. And I had to meet an important client that day, so I wanted to dress a bit more formally. Chloe, what exactly are you trying to ask? I briefly explained what Jess had seen. Ethan listened, and then laughed. So your friend mistook me for Michael. That makes sense. We've always looked a bit alike, right? People used to get us confused all the time in college. You know that, he added. And we have similar tastes, so it's possible we'd buy the same clothes. His explanation was very plausible, but there was still a nagging feeling of unease in my heart. Then can you tell me who that woman is? Ethan hesitated. She's a very important investor. It's a business secret, so it's a bit difficult for me to go into detail. But I can assure you our relationship is purely professional. He looked at me earnestly. Chloe, you have to believe me. Michael and I are like brothers. How could I ever do anything to hurt him? After lunch, Ethan drove me back to my hotel. In the car, he brought up a new topic. Actually, I have another reason for being in Miami. What's that? I'm planning to invest in a resort project here. I'll probably be staying in Miami long term. He looked out at the palm trees. The pace of life in San Francisco is too fast. I wanted to change my environment, catch my breath. What about your old job I already quit? Ethan said. I'm going to try to do something on my own now. Something I'm really interested in. I remembered what he said about his divorce and asked cautiously. Is there really no chance you and your ex-wife will get back together? Ethan was silent for a moment. Some things, you can't go back even if you want to. We were together for 12 years, and in the end, we realized we wanted completely different things. It's better to let go gracefully than to hang on in misery. Though his tone was calm, I could sense the bitterness deep in his heart. If you need any help, you can always talk to us, I said sincerely. Thanks. Ethan smiled. Oh, and please don't mention this to Michael yet. I want to tell him myself once things are more settled here. Okay. When I got back to the hotel, Jess hadn't returned yet. She had gone to a company team-building event. I sat alone in the room replaying my conversation with Ethan. His words all sounded reasonable, but something still felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it felt like I was missing a crucial clue. I took out the photo again and examined it carefully. The man in the picture was definitely Ethan. I could confirm that now. But who was the woman Ethan said she was an important investor, and their relationship was purely professional? But if it was just business, why was he holding her waist? Why did they look so intimate? I kept zooming in on the photo, trying to see the woman's face, but the angle and lighting were too poor. All I could see was a blurry profile. My phone rang. It was Michael. Hey, honey. Are you all done? His voice was tinged with a smile. Yeah, just finished lunch. How are things with Jess? Almost resolved. I hesitated for a moment. Michael, let me ask you something. What is it? When was the last time you saw Ethan? Ethan, Michael thought for a moment. About 4 months ago. He was in San Francisco for a business trip, and we had dinner. Why do you ask all of a sudden? No reason, just curious. Is he doing okay? I heard he quit his job. Yeah, he called me last month to tell me, Michael said. He's starting a business in Miami. Said I should come visit sometime. My heart started racing. Did he say what kind of business he's doing? Something related to resorts and hotels, I think. I didn't ask for details. What's wrong? No, nothing. I changed the subject. Is it busy at work these days? So? The UK project is a bit tricky, so I need to pay more attention to it. We chatted for a few more minutes about everyday things before hanging up. For the next 2 days, I continued to wander around Miami. On the surface, I was traveling with Jess, but in reality, I was secretly investigating. I went back to the Azure Whisper a few times, but got nothing. Their security was tight, and no matter how I tried to pry, I couldn't get any useful information. I also went to several hotels on the west side. Pretending to look for someone, I described the woman, but no one had seen her. On the 3rd day, Jess's conference ended. She had to fly back to San Francisco. Chloe, you should come back with me, she said. I really think I was just mistaken. Don't let it get to you. It's okay. I'll stay 1 more day. After seeing Jess off, I went to the west side again. This time, I didn't go to the Azure Whisper, but to a nearby beachfront villa community. Ethan said he was investing in Miami. Maybe this was part of it. I walked around the sales office pretending to be interested in buying a property. The sales consultant was very friendly, giving me a tour of the community and showing me the model home. Have you had any recent clients with the last name Harris? I asked casually. Mr. Harris. The consultant's eyes lit up. Yes, we have. Mr. Ethan Harris signed a contract for a beachfront villa last week. Paid in full cash. My heart started pounding. Did he buy it alone? No, he came with his girlfriend, the consultant said with a smile. She's absolutely beautiful. A real stunner. She has such a great presence, too. Can you describe what she looked like? I want to see if it's someone I know. She looked to be in her late 20s, long hair, very fair skin. Great figure, too, the consultant recalled. She was wearing a wine-red dress that day. So elegant and sophisticated. A wine-red dress. The woman in the photo immediately came to mind. I couldn't see her face clearly, but her figure, skin tone, long hair, and that wine-red dress, it was a perfect match. Do you remember when they came? I tried to keep my voice as calm as possible. Let me see. I'll check. The consultant looked up the records on the computer. December 26th. Last Thursday afternoon. December 26th. The day after Jess witnessed the scene. Did the woman say anything else? She was very quiet. Mr. Harris did most of the talking, coordinating the details with us, the consultant said. But I did notice she was wearing a very beautiful ring on her hand. Looked like a diamond ring. I think they might be engaged. My palms started to sweat. What kind of ring was it? It was an oval-cut diamond, looked to be at least 3 carats. The setting was very intricate. It was definitely an expensive piece. A buzzing sound filled my head. The description was eerily similar to a ring I had seen before. I left the sales office and sat on a bench on the beach boardwalk for a long time. The sea breeze was cool on my face, but I didn't feel it. Ethan had bought a house in Miami, and with a woman. The woman's description perfectly matched the woman in the photo. But Ethan said he was divorced. He said his relationship with her was just business. If it was just business, why would they buy a villa together? A beachfront villa paid for in cash. I remembered Ethan saying he was starting a business in Miami and would be staying long-term. If it was for his business, did he have to buy a villa? Couldn't he have just rented, unless he was planning to settle here? With someone. Who was she? I took out my phone and after a long hesitation finally called Ethan. Chloe, he answered quickly. What's up, Ethan? Did you buy a house in Miami? I asked, straight to the point. There was a few seconds of silence on the other end. How did you know? I heard it by chance, I said. You said you were starting a business. Why buy a villa? Well, Ethan paused. Chloe, that's my personal business. I know it's personal. I'm just worried, I said, trying to sound as natural as possible. You're in Miami all by yourself. We're all a little concerned. I'm not alone, Ethan said, and then, as if realizing his mistake, quickly added, I mean, I've made some friends here, so I'm not lonely. The woman who went to see the house with you? Chloe. Ethan cut me off, his tone becoming stern. What exactly are you trying to ask? I took a deep breath. I just want to know if you're doing okay, if you need any help. I'm fine. I'm doing really well, Ethan's tone softened. Thanks for your concern. But some things. It's a bit difficult for me to talk about them right now. When the time is right, I'll tell you and Michael myself. Okay. I didn't press any further. Then, take care of yourself. After hanging up, I leaned against the boardwalk railing, staring blankly at the distant sea. Ethan's reaction was too strange. If he had just bought a house normally, why would he try to hide it? If he and the woman were just ordinary friends, why couldn't he just say so, unless he was hiding a secret he couldn't talk about? And that secret was probably related to Michael. Around evening, I returned to the hotel. As soon as I entered the room, my phone rang. A local number. Hello, is this Chloe Miller? The voice was a woman's. Yes, this is she. Who's calling? I'm the public relations manager at the Azure Whisper. I heard you've been asking about the incident the other night. My heart skipped a beat. Yes, there are a few things I'd like to find out. I'm sorry, but our policy prevents us from disclosing our clients' privacy. However, seeing as you're so persistent, I just wanted to offer a friendly piece of advice. The woman lowered her voice. Some things are better left unknown. What do you mean? You should figure that out for yourself. The person hung up after saying this. What did that call mean? What was she trying to tell me? I tried calling back, but the phone was already turned off. I sat on the edge of the bed, my mind in a complete jumble. All the clues were pointing to one possibility. Ethan was hiding something, and that secret was related to the mysterious woman. But why would an employee from the Azure Whisper go out of their way to call and advise me, she said. Some things are better left unknown. What did that mean? Suddenly a possibility occurred to me. A possibility I hadn't dared to think about deeply. What if that woman was Michael's mistress? No, that's impossible. Michael would never do that. I know him too well. He's always been so good to me, never lied to me once. There's no way he would see another woman behind my back. But all the evidence was pointing in one direction. That coat, that back, that mysterious woman, and Ethan's strange reaction. I didn't want to think about it anymore. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I tossed and turned in bed, my mind filled with all sorts of speculations and doubts. At 3 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I got up, threw on a robe, and went out to the balcony for some fresh air. The Miami night was beautiful. The stars were brilliant, and the distant sound of the waves was soft and pleasant. But I was in no mood to appreciate it. Suddenly, my phone vibrated. It was a text from Michael. "Why are you still up?" I froze. "How did you know I'm not asleep?" I texted back. "I could feel it," he replied with a smiling emoji. "When you can't sleep, I can't either. It's like we have telepathy." My eyes suddenly welled up. This was the connection we had. Even hundreds of miles apart, we could sense each other's state of mind. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. I hesitated for a long time before finally typing a line. "Michael, if one day I found out something bad, what would you do?" "Something bad? Like what?" "It's about trust." My phone rang immediately. "Chloe, what on earth is going on?" Michael's voice was filled with worry and anxiety. "Did something happen in Miami?" Hearing his voice, my tears finally broke free. "Michael, I'm scared." "What are you scared of?" "I'm scared of losing you. I'm scared our trust will be broken." "Silly, you won't lose me." Michael's voice was incredibly gentle. "No matter what happens, I'll always be on your side. If something is bothering you, tell me. We'll solve it together." What if I sobbed. "What if one day I doubted you? Would you be angry?" "I wouldn't be angry. I'd be hurt," Michael sighed. "I'd be hurt that you didn't just ask me directly instead of suffering alone." "Chloe, how long have we been together? You know the kind of person I am. No matter what, I would never deceive you." "I know. Then get some rest. When you come back tomorrow, I'll pick you up from the airport." After hanging up, my heart calmed down a little. Maybe I really was overthinking it. Maybe it was all just a coincidence. The next morning, I checked out and prepared to head to the airport for my flight back to San Francisco. As I was walking through the hotel lobby with my suitcase, I saw a familiar back. It was Ethan. He was checking in at the front desk, and next to him stood a woman. The woman was wearing a white dress, her long hair flowing down her back. Her profile was elegant and beautiful. I instinctively hid behind a pillar and watched them quietly. Ethan was talking to the front desk staff, and the woman was looking down at her phone. A moment later, the staff handed Ethan a room key, and the two of them walked towards the elevator together. The moment they turned, I finally saw the woman's face clearly. And in that instant, I froze. I had not only seen that face before, but it was very familiar. She was Claire Reed, the newly appointed vice president at Michael's company. I had met her a few times. Once at the company's year-end party, Michael had introduced her to me. She was an elite talent who had returned from the London office with outstanding work abilities and had been given a key position at the headquarters. I remembered that at the party that day, Claire was wearing a black velvet dress. She was full of poise and her demeanor was elegant. Michael had spoken very highly of her, calling her a key figure in the company's future development. But how could I have ever imagined that she would be with Ethan? And they looked so intimate. As they got into the elevator, I stood there, my mind blank. I immediately took out my phone and looked at the blurry photo again meticulously. I couldn't see her face in the photo, but now I was sure. The woman in the wine-red evening gown was Claire Reed. How could she be with Ethan? What was their relationship? More importantly, if it was Ethan and Claire, at the Azure Whisper that night, why did Jess mistake him? Ethan and Michael had some resemblance, but there were clear differences. Especially for someone who knew them well, it was unlikely to be a mistake. Could it be? Suddenly I thought of the charcoal gray coat. Ethan said he had bought the same design and wore it the other night. But what if the one he wore wasn't his but Michael's? No, that's impossible. Michael's coat was in our closet. I had checked it myself, and the security cameras showed that Michael had been home all night and never went out. But then, how could all of this be explained? My phone suddenly vibrated. It was a text message from an unknown number. "Chloe Miller, if you want to know the truth, come to the White Lighthouse on the West Coast at 8 p.m. tonight. Come alone." I stared at the message, my fingers trembling slightly. Who sent this? What did they know? I looked around trying to spot anyone suspicious, but the lobby was bustling with people, and I couldn't tell if anyone was secretly watching me. My flight was at 3 p.m. It was now 9 a.m. I still had time. I decided not to go back to San Francisco just yet. I had to find out what was really going on. I checked back in and asked for a room with an ocean view. I put down my luggage and sat by the window, staring blankly at the distant sea. I started to organize all the clues in my head. Michael was in San Francisco. That was confirmed. Ethan was in Miami. Claire Reed was also in Miami. Their relationship seemed very intimate. But what did this have to in with me? Why was I being dragged into this? And who was the person who sent the text message? How did they know I was investigating this? What was the truth they wanted to tell me? The more I thought about it, the more I felt that this was not a simple matter. There was a secret hidden behind it all, one that I knew nothing about. Time ticked by. I sat by the window waiting for night to fall. At 5 p.m., Michael called. "Honey, you haven't boarded yet. I checked the flight information and the plane you booked has already taken off." I paused for a moment. I changed my flight at the last minute. To a flight tomorrow. Why did something else happen with Jess? Yeah. So I decided to stay with her one more day. My heart was in knots as I lied. This was the first lie I had ever told Michael. There had never been a first time before. Okay. Then take care. Do you want me to fly over and keep you company? No, it's fine. You just focus on your work. After hanging up, I leaned back on the sofa and closed my eyes. I didn't know what would happen tonight, but I had to go to that lighthouse. I had to know the truth. At 7:30 p.m., the sky was completely dark. I changed into dark clothes, tied my hair into a ponytail, grabbed a small bag, and quietly left the hotel. The white lighthouse on the west coast. I searched for it on the map. It was about a 20-minute drive from the hotel. It was a rather old lighthouse said to have been built during a much earlier era. It was no longer in use and had become a tourist attraction, but at night there were hardly any tourists, making it particularly desolate. I hailed a taxi and gave the driver the destination. The driver, a middle-aged man, paused when he heard the address. "Miss, why are you going there alone? It's dark and dangerous at night." "It's okay. I have an appointment." The driver didn't say anything more and started the car. The entire way my heart was pounding and my palms were sweaty. I didn't know what was waiting for me, but I had to go. All the events of the past few days had become a tangled mess, suffocating me. I needed answers, even if they would hurt me. 20 minutes later, the taxi stopped by a quiet little road. "We're here. The lighthouse is on the beach just ahead," the driver said, pointing forward. "Are you sure you want to get out? I can wait for you here." "No, it's okay. Thank you." I paid the fare and got out of the car. Before me was a pitch-black beach with the faint outline of the lighthouse in the distance. The waves crashed against the shore, making a rhythmic sound, and the air was filled with a salty, damp smell. I took a deep breath and started walking towards the lighthouse. The sand on the beach was soft. I turned on my phone's flashlight to light my way. After about a 5-minute walk, the lighthouse finally appeared before me. It was a cylindrical building about 60 feet high, painted entirely white with a now extinguished lamp at the top. There were no lights around the lighthouse. Only the moonlight cast a silvery white glow on it. I stood at the base of the lighthouse and looked around. "Is anyone there?" My voice was scattered by the sea breeze. There was no answer. I checked my phone. The time was 7:55 p.m. 5 minutes until the appointed time. I leaned against the lighthouse wall and waited quietly. At exactly 8 p.m., a flashlight beam shone from the distance. I instinctively squinted and shielded my eyes. "Chloe Miller, you came." A woman's voice came from behind the light. I recognized the voice. It was the woman who had called me this afternoon, the PR manager from the Azure Whisper. "It was you," I said, a little surprised. "Why did you ask me to come here?" The woman walked closer and turned off her flashlight. In the moonlight, I could finally see her face. She looked to be in her early 30s, with short hair and neat features, a hint of fatigue in her eyes. "My name is Sophia Collins," she introduced herself. "I've worked at the Azure Whisper for 3 years. Why are you telling me all this? Because I owe you the truth," Sophia sighed. "Or maybe I should say I owe a lot of people the truth." "What do you mean?" My heart started beating faster. "Chloe, do you know who the man dining at the Azure Whisper that night was?" "Ethan Harris," I replied. "I've already met him. He admitted he was there that night." Sophia shook her head. "No, the man at the Azure Whisper that night was not Ethan Harris." I froze. "What are you talking about? The man was Michael Miller," Sophia said, looking me straight in the eye, enunciating each word. "Your husband, Michael Miller." I felt like I had been punched in the gut. My mind went blank. "That's impossible," my voice trembled. "He was at home in San Francisco that night in a video conference. I saw him with my own eyes." "What you saw was only what he wanted you to see," Sophia said. "Chloe, have you ever considered that a video conference could be faked? I brought him tea and he spoke to me," I almost shouted. "It was definitely real time." "Are you sure it was him?" Sophia's tone was calm. Or was it just someone who looked like him? My mind was in turmoil. Someone who looked like him, Ethan. No matter how much Ethan and Michael looked alike, someone who knew them well could tell them apart. And that night I had clearly seen Michael's face. Wait. I tried to recall the situation that night in detail. When I brought him the tea, he turned his head, smiled at me, and said, "Thanks, honey. You go get some sleep." But the lighting in the study was dim, and he was sitting with his back to the window, so I hadn't actually seen his face clearly. "You're starting to have doubts, aren't you?" Sophia said. "Chloe, let me tell you the truth. That night, Michael was definitely in Miami. He had dinner with Claire Reed at the Azure Whisper, and then went to a villa on the west side. And the person who created his alibi in San Francisco was Ethan Harris." My world felt like it was collapsing. "Ethan created his alibi in San Francisco." "Yes," Sophia nodded. "The person in the meeting in your study that night was Ethan. He was wearing Michael's clothes, using Michael's computer, and attending that video conference as Michael." "How is that possible?" My voice trembled. "The people in the video conference all know Michael. How could they not recognize him?" "Because they are all Michael's people," Sophia said. "Laura Roberts, David Scott, Ben Carter, they all knew. They put on a show with Ethan just to make you believe that Michael was in San Francisco all night." I sank to the sand, my legs giving out completely. The security cameras, the video conference, the phone's location history. It was all an elaborately crafted lie. Why? Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. Why would he do this? What is his relationship with Claire Reed? Sophia was silent for a moment then, said Claire Reed is Michael's first love. They broke up 10 years ago and got back together 3 years ago. For the past 3 years, they've been seeing each other in secret. 3 years. A full 3 years. Michael and I had been married for 5 years, and he had been secretly seeing Claire for 3. That means he started cheating on me just 2 years into our marriage. For the past 3 years, every I love you, every gentle look, every loving embrace was all a lie. How do you know all this? I looked up at Sophia. Why are you telling me? Sophia sat down next to me and looked out at the distant sea. Because I am also a victim. Her voice was laced with bitterness. 3 years ago, Michael came to the Azure Whisper to discuss a project collaboration. At that time, I was just an ordinary employee. Young, naive, easy to fool. He was good to me, whispered all sorts of sweet nothings. He said his marriage was just for business, that I was the only one in his heart. I believed him, and I was with him for 2 years. It was only later that I found out he was also seeing Claire Reed at the same time. I was just one of his many mistresses. I froze. Many mistresses, Sophia gave a bitter smile. Besides me and Claire, he has at least one other mistress. One in Chicago, one in Dallas, and another one overseas. He had a woman in every city, and you, the wife, were just a tool to maintain his public image. A pain like a knife twisting in my heart made it hard to breathe. Then, what about Ethan? I managed to ask. Why did he help Michael? They have a mutually beneficial relationship, Sophia said. Ethan's company owes Michael a lot of money. If he doesn't help him, his company will go bankrupt. And Ethan himself is not clean. He and Claire Reed also have an unspoken relationship. Ethan and Claire Reed. My eyes widened in surprise. I just saw them checking into a hotel together. Yes, they are dating, Sophia nodded. But that doesn't stop Claire from seeing Michael at the same time. In this world, loyalty is the cheapest thing. I felt like I was caught in a giant vortex being pulled deeper and deeper. Michael, Ethan, Claire. How complicated were their relationships? Then the scene my friend Jess saw. I tried to remain calm. Was it Michael or Ethan at the Azure Whisper that night? It was Michael, Sophia said with certainty. I saw it with my own eyes. I was on duty that night and he came with Claire Reed. He was wearing that charcoal gray coat, his arm around her waist. They were very intimate. But Ethan said it was him that night. He's lying, Sophia cut me off. They've already coordinated their stories. If you asked, Ethan was to say he was at the Azure Whisper that night, taking the blame for Michael. After all, they look somewhat alike, and if they wear the same clothes, an ordinary person would have a hard time telling them apart. Plus, since Ethan actually bought a house in Miami and was seen looking at properties with Claire, they figured that even if you continued to investigate, you would only uncover the relationship between Ethan and Claire, and wouldn't suspect Michael. I finally understood everything. It was an intricately designed trap. Michael used Ethan as a stand-in to create an alibi in San Francisco, and if they were found out, Ethan would step up and say he was the one in Miami that night taking the fall. The truth would have been buried forever. Do you have proof? I wiped the tears from my face and asked as rationally as I could. Do you have proof for what you've said? Sophia took a USB drive from her bag. Here is the security camera footage from the Azure Whisper that night. It clearly shows Michael and Claire's faces. There are also photos I secretly took when they were at the villa. She handed the USB drive to me. In addition, there are chat logs, transaction records, and photos with other mistresses from the past 3 years. It's enough to ruin him publicly. I took the USB drive, my fingers trembling slightly. Why are you helping me? I'm not helping you. I'm helping myself, Sophia said, getting up and brushing the sand off her skirt. I was deceived by him for 2 years and lost the most precious years of my youth. Now I just want him to pay the price. But my own power is weak. That's why I need you. She looked at me, a hint of expectation in her eyes. Chloe Miller, are you willing to expose this scumbag's true colors with me? I clutched the USB drive and stood up. I need some time to process all this. I understand, Sophia nodded. But I hope you can decide as soon as possible. Michael is preparing for a very large project investment recently. If a scandal breaks out at this time, it will be a fatal blow to him. She took a business card from her pocket and handed it to me. This is my contact information. Call me when you've made a decision. I took the card. Sophia turned and left. I stood alone at the base of the lighthouse, watching her back disappear into the darkness. The sea breeze blew the salty taste mixing with the tears on my face. I don't know how long I stood there. It could have been 10 minutes, or it could have been an hour. My mind was in a complete mess. Countless scenes flashed through my mind. The day Michael and I first met, he walked up to me with a smile. The sunlight streamed down on him, and he looked like a prince who had stepped out of a painting. Our first date, he held my hand and walked down the street, promising to take care of me for the rest of my life. The day we got married, he kissed my forehead in front of everyone and said I was the best thing that had ever happened to him. Over the past years, he had been so good to me. Attentive, gentle, never once making me feel wronged. I believed we would live happily ever after like this. But now everything was shattered. The man I loved had never existed. He was just a fraud in a mask. He had created a huge lie with his false tenderness and trapped me in it for 5 years. It was 11 p.m. when I got back to the hotel. As soon as I entered the room, I plugged the USB drive into my laptop. Inside were several folders neatly organized by category. I opened the first folder, the Azure Whispers security footage. The video was very clear with a timestamp of December 25th, 9:37 p.m. A black Porsche pulled up to the restaurant entrance, and a man got out of the driver's seat, walked over to the passenger side, and opened the door for a woman. The man was wearing a charcoal gray coat, the woman a wine-red evening gown. The moment the man turned, the camera captured his face clearly. It was Michael. There was no doubt about it. It was the man I had looked at for 8 years, the man I had loved for 8 years. My hands started to tremble and tears streamed down my face again. I continued to watch the video. The second folder contained photos. The location was a beachfront villa. In the photos, Michael and Claire were standing side by side in front of a floor-to-ceiling window, their backs to the camera, looking out at the sea. In another photo, they were sitting on a sofa facing each other with Claire leaning into Michael's embrace. Their hands were tightly clasped. There were even more incriminating photos. Michael was kissing Claire's forehead. The gesture was exactly the same as when he kissed me. I felt a wave of nausea and wanted to throw up. I suppressed the urge and continued to check the other files. Chat logs, transaction records, hotel check-in records. All of it was undeniable proof. Michael and Claire had definitely been seeing each other for 3 years, and he had other mistresses. Everything Sophia said was true. I sat in front of the computer all night. I went through everything on the USB drive. By the time the sun came up, my eyes were red and swollen, but my mind was clearer than ever. I knew what I had to do. I opened my phone and sent a message to Jess. Jess, I was right. You weren't mistaken that night. Jess replied almost instantly. Chloe, what did you find out? Instead of replying, I called her. I told her everything that had happened last night, what Sophia had told me, and the evidence on the USB drive. Jess was silent on the other end, for a long time. Chloe, what are you going to do? Are you going to divorce him? My voice was calm. Yes. But before I do, I'm going to make him pay. Are you going to expose him with that Sophia woman? No. I have my own plan. I got up and walked to the window. Looking at the brightening sky outside, I said, Jess, can you help me with something? Anything. Find out about the investment project Michael's company is working on recently. I need to know the specific time and amount. No problem. I have a few friends in the investment industry. I can find out. Thank you, Jess. Chloe, whatever you do, I support you. Jess's voice was firm. That bastard doesn't deserve to be your husband. After hanging up, I started packing. I had to go back to San Francisco. The battle ahead had to be fought there. At noon, I was on a flight back to San Francisco. As the plane took off, I looked back at Miami outside the window. This city had completely changed my life. An hour later, the plane landed at SFO. As I walked out of the terminal, I spotted Michael waiting at the arrival gate. He was wearing the familiar navy coat, holding a bouquet of red roses, a gentle smile on his face. Honey, you must be tired. He took a step forward, intending to hug me. I instinctively took a step back. What's wrong? Michael's smile stiffened for a moment. Chloe, are you not feeling well? No, I forced a smile. A little tired from the long flight. Then let's go home and you can get some rest. Michael took my suitcase and held my hand. His hand was as warm as ever. But I knew this warmth was fake. Just like the man himself was a fake. I followed him to the parking lot, repeating to myself in my head, Chloe, stay calm. You have to be calmer. It's not time to blow everything up yet. You have to wait for the right moment to deliver the fatal blow. After returning home, I acted as if nothing had happened on the surface. I cooked, did laundry, and chatted with Michael. I did everything as usual, always with a gentle smile on my face. But only I knew that every moment was torture. Every time I looked at his face, the images from the photos him and Claire embracing, kissing, flashed through my mind, and I felt so disgusted I wanted to vomit. But I endured it. I knew that the longer I waited, the more ruthless my revenge would be. 3 days later, I got a call from Jess. Chloe, I found out. Michael's company has an important investment signing ceremony on the 15th of next month. The expected investment amount is $500 million. Where is the ceremony being held? At the Street Regis Hotel. A lot of media and investors will be there. Good. A faint smile appeared on my lips. Jess, I need you to do one more thing for me. Name it. Connect me with a few reliable journalists, preferably from the financial sector, especially those who aren't afraid to report on corporate scandals. Chloe, you're not thinking of... I took a deep breath. I'm going to expose his true colors in front of everyone at his most glorious moment. For the next half a month, I secretly made preparations. I reorganized all the evidence on the USB drive, picking out the most damning pieces. The security footage, the photos, the chat logs. Any one of them was enough to ruin Michael publicly. I also consulted with a lawyer about the divorce proceedings. The lawyer said that with such clear evidence of infidelity, not only could I get a smooth divorce, but I could also receive a significant amount in alimony. More importantly, according to a prenuptial agreement Michael had signed, if he ever cheated, 30% of his company's stock would automatically be transferred to my name. I had insisted on this clause at the time. Michael had readily agreed, saying he would never cheat anyway. Thinking about it now, it was truly ironic. The day before the signing ceremony, I got a call from Sophia. Chloe, are you ready? Yes, I'm ready. What's your plan? At the signing ceremony tomorrow, I'm going to expose him in front of everyone. My voice was calm. Then the media will capture everything and spread it to the world. Aren't you afraid he'll retaliate? I am, I admitted. But more than fear, I can't stand to see him continue to live as if nothing happened. I understand. Sophia's voice was filled with admiration. Chloe, I wish you success. On January 15th, the day of the signing ceremony, the ballroom at the Street Regis was packed. Journalists and investors were everywhere. Michael was wearing a sharp suit, standing on the main stage, giving a triumphant speech. Behind him was a huge company logo and the slogan, $500 million investment, a new leap forward. I was wearing a black suit sitting in a corner of the ballroom. I was clutching an envelope. Inside were the proofs of Michael's infidelity, photos, chat logs, screenshots, and a detailed description. In a little while, I planned to distribute these to every journalist present. Michael's speech lasted about 20 minutes. After the speech, the signing ceremony began. He shook hands with the representative of the investment firm, signed the contract, and raised a toast. The camera flashes went off like crazy, and the journalists were busy taking pictures to capture this moment. It was then that I stood up. Mr. Miller, congratulations. My voice wasn't loud, but the ballroom suddenly fell silent. Everyone turned to look at me. Michael's face tightened slightly, but he quickly regained his composure. Chloe, what are you doing here? He smiled and walked towards me, trying to take my hand. On such an important day, of course I have to come and support my husband, I said, avoiding his hand and giving a faint smile. But before I congratulate you, there's something I'd like to share with everyone. I opened the envelope and handed out the materials to the journalists one by one. What's this? A journalist asked, curious. Another side of Mr. Michael Miller. My voice was calm, but each word was like a blade. As you all know, Mr. Miller is an elite in the business world, a model of a successful entrepreneur. But there's something you don't know. He is also a serial cheater, a scumbag. The ballroom erupted in a commotion. Michael's face turned ashen in an instant. Chloe, what are you talking about? He said, trying to act calm and walk towards me. There must be some misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, I gave a cold laugh and pointed to the materials in the journalist's hands. Are these photos fake too? Are these chat logs fake? The fact that you were whispering sweet nothings to Claire Reed in a villa in Miami, was that a misunderstanding too? Michael's face grew even tighter. He clearly hadn't imagined I would have this evidence. Chloe, let's go home and talk about this, okay? He said, lowering his voice and trying to pull me aside. Let's not do this here. Why not? I pushed his hand away, my voice getting louder. Weren't you afraid of this when you were out with other women? Weren't you afraid when you were deceiving me? The journalists were already taking pictures like crazy. The flashes were non-stop, and the investment firm representatives were just looking at each other, their expressions grim. This investment deal was probably off the table. What happened next was like an uncontrollable storm. The media reports poured out, and business elite Michael Miller's infidelity wife exposes him, in person, became the top trending topic online. After seeing the evidence, the investment firm immediately announced the termination of their cooperation on the spot. The $500 million investment vanished into thin air. Michael's company's stock plummeted and partners rushed to distance themselves. And I became the talk of the town. Some people criticized me for not considering the bigger picture and ruining the company, while others praised me for bravely exposing a scumbag. But whatever the world said, I didn't care. All I wanted was justice. 3 days after the signing ceremony, I officially filed for divorce. Thanks to the mountain of evidence of his infidelity, the court quickly granted the divorce. According to the prenuptial agreement, 30% of Michael's company stock became mine, and I also received a significant amount in emotional distress damages. The moment I received the judgment, I finally let out a sigh of relief. This nightmare was finally over. In the first week after the divorce, I sold all of the 30% of the stock. The company's stock had plummeted, so I didn't get a high price, but it was still enough money to live comfortably for the rest of my life. I used the money to buy a small apartment in San Francisco and start a new life. The days without Michael were much more liberating than I had imagined. I no longer had to worry about his lies, nor did I have to guess if he was out doing something else every time he came home late. I could sleep in, eat whatever I wanted, and do anything I wanted. 3 months later, I got a job at a design firm. The salary wasn't high, but every day was fulfilling. My colleagues didn't know about my past and treated me like an ordinary new employee. I also enjoyed starting over, living a completely new life. One day, on my way home from work, I ran into Ethan at the entrance of my apartment building. He looked much more haggard than 3 months ago. His eyes were sunken and his face was full of fatigue. Chloe, he called out to me. Can we talk? I stopped and looked at him. If you have something to say it. Ethan was silent for a moment, then said, I'm sorry. That night at your house, it was me pretending to be Michael. I deceived you. I know my tone was calm, so I just wanted to apologize to you in person, Ethan said, lowering his head. I shouldn't have helped Michael. I knew what kind of person he was. I should have told you earlier. But you didn't. No, I didn't. Ethan gave a bitter smile. So, now I'm paying the price, I guess. I didn't say anything, just looked at him quietly. Chloe, please forgive me. Ethan looked up, his eyes pleading. I know I was wrong, but... Ethan, I cut him off. You don't need my forgiveness. What you need is to properly reflect on yourself and start over as a new person. After saying this, I turned and left. I heard Ethan's long sigh behind me, but I didn't look back. A year later, on a spring day, I met a stranger at the cafe downstairs from my office. He was wearing a comfortable white shirt and black-rimmed glasses with a very calm and scholarly air. Excuse me, is this seat taken? He asked, pointing to the seat opposite me. No, go ahead. He sat down, ordered an Americano, and opened his laptop to work. We both minded our own business, not saying a word. After a while, he suddenly looked up at me and said, You look like you're in a bad mood. Do I? I was a little surprised. I just have a lot on my mind. Sometimes thinking too much only makes things harder for yourself, he smiled. Why not let go of the past and enjoy the present? I was stunned for a moment, then couldn't help but smile. You're right. We talked for a long time that day. His name was Leo, a freelance writer who loved to travel and take pictures. His smile was warm and he looked you in the eye when he spoke. He was a completely different person from Michael. When we were about to part ways, he asked me, could we get coffee together again sometime if there's a chance? I thought for a moment and nodded. Okay. What happened after that was like all beautiful stories, it just flowed naturally. Leo became my boyfriend and then my husband. We traveled together, watched sunrises and sunsets together, and went through the joys and sorrows of life together. He wasn't perfect, but he was real. He would hold me when I was sad and rejoice with me when I was happy. He didn't whisper flowery words of love, but I could feel his love in every action. One day, we were lying on the balcony chairs looking at the stars. Leo suddenly asked, Chloe, have you ever regretted it? Regretted what exposing Michael like that? I thought for a moment and shook my head. No regrets. If I had endured it back then, I would probably still be living in that lie and pain. Because of that courage, I was able to meet you. Leo turned his head and kissed my forehead. Chloe, thank you for choosing me. I leaned into his embrace and looked at the star-filled sky, a smile on my lips. That one late-night phone call had changed my destiny. It had made me see one person's true colors and also helped me find the happiness that truly belonged to me. The 2 a.m. ringtone was once the beginning of a nightmare, but looking back now, it was also the starting point of a new life. Some things you have to lose to gain something better.